Commissioner Roemer.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
We are very late on time, so.
I realize that. I'll try to be very brief. I did want to follow up on one of the senator's points with respect to, with all due respect, it's not so much hindsight looking back for us as it is one of really the celebrated successes at the millennium of Customs and INS and Border Patrol working together to stop something from happening. Senator Kerry mentioned the turning point being Africa in 1998 and the bombings there. Well, certainly in the millennium, we have terrorists targeting our domestic homeland, and more specifically, the Los Angeles airport. Rassam is trying to get across the border, up on the northwest border, and you have a celebrated success at the millennium. You have something that has been widely reported in the media, where an agent is doing her job diligently and with some serendipity, discovers what she seems to think might be some drug problems, and with some combined skills from some other people, they look in the trunk, they find bomb material, and we catch somebody that might be coming at us to bomb the LA airport. Now, we're not talking about, specifically airlines as we were in the Bojinka plot. We are talking about a domestic threat that happened in 1993 at the World Trade Center, which they came back to. That happened outside Langley, where there was a shooting. That happened in the Landmarks case in New York, where terrorists wanted to bomb some of our most historic sites up in New York City. Why? It's not hindsight. Why is it? Why is it that we aren't more focused from outside inward to the domestic threat?
Well, we definitely are more focused now. I mean, the question is,
I'm talking about why on September the 11th,
on 9/11?
Why aren't we more focused now?
And look, I'm, as you know, very much aware it was a Customs Inspector, Diana Dean, who was questioning Ahmad Rassam. Ahmad Rassam was not only an Algerian national in Canada illegally, but he had gone to terrorist training camps run by Al-Qaeda in Afghanistan. He was to link up with some Al-Qaeda terrorists in the United States to assist them to carry out the bombing attack on Los Angeles International Airport. So yeah, it's one inspector, cold hit by the way, just like Inspector Melendez, cold hit by Inspector Dean. No advance information, just doing her job. So it is important, by the way, to have well-trained people doing their job. We obviously want to be able to give them more information in terms of who it is they need to look at, what they need to look at, to improve our chances of preventing terrorists from entering our country to carry out attacks. So I don't, by the way, when I said hindsight, I don't mean that pejoratively. I mean, the 9/11 Commission is doing exactly what it should be doing, looking at this and trying to figure out what we could have done better and what we need to do better and what we are doing better. But so I don't mean to, please don't interpret that as critical whatsoever.
Oh, no, Senator Kerry's gone. You can say anything you want about him now.
Would you tell him? Would you tell Senator Kerry?
But we'll see. We'll see how you continue to answer these questions. On the training side, you said that these agents did their job without advanced knowledge on the border to get Rassam. Great example of fortune and training and skill and some education and combination of resources coming together to catch this person. But we also need strategic and tactical information to give them advance warning about our borders. There are reports that Al-Qaeda cells still exist in the United States or up in Canada. Where are you getting, Commissioner, your strategic and tactical intelligence now? Apparently it's not from the CIA.
Well, every day, actually, when before March 1 of 2003, actually, every day, or virtually every working day, I did get an intelligence briefing in the morning by the CIA.
Up until when?
Up until well, until the formation of the Department of Homeland Security.
Till March?
And now on March 1 of this year. So, and now I am getting intelligence information. We have an Office of Intelligence within Customs, now Customs and Border Protection. So we get all of the classified cables come into our SCIF, and they are reviewed by our people in terms of one question: is this going to be helpful to the frontline inspectors at the borders to have this information?
Are these
Now,
new, excuse
by the
me,
way,
let me just ask a
yeah, go
quick
ahead.
question. Are these newly hired people, or are they, as I've experienced with the briefings from the CIA, you have some of the most experienced people at CIA with decades of experience. You don't have those briefings anymore as of March 1.
Well,
do you have the new hired and the inexperienced people giving you these briefs now?
That was just me personally getting briefings.
No, I'm just curious
which is important,
as to
by the
how
way,
we're
but-
formulating the people that are coming to give us the tactical
by and
and
large,
strategic intelligence.
this is a small cadre of intelligence analysts that we had at U.S. Customs. It's smaller now because there was a break-off of Customs, but it's a small cadre of intelligence analysts that have the highest level of clearances, including SCI clearances, and they are looking at, this is just one of the mechanisms.
Yeah, but this is a new department. Where are they from? Are they detailed from another agency?
These are people. The people that are looking at the classified cables are U.S. Customs and Border Protection intelligence analysts as part of our Office of Intelligence. It's not the only source where we get information. I just want you to know there are about 800 classified cables a day. We look at them. Does it have any information, not just tactically, but strategically important to the border and border security? Now, if it does, as I think you know, under the rules, we have to go back, as we do, to the originating source to declassify that so we can put out an appropriate alert or information to the field, and that's what we do. That's why we have that node there. We are also getting information from the Information Analysis Infrastructure, can't say it, IAIP, Information Analysis Infrastructure Protection Directorate of the Department of Homeland Security, which is drawing, we put our collection requirements up to, I'm going to call it IA, and it puts them to the intel community. And we are actually pulling valuable information down that is relevant and related to border security through IAIP as a unit within the new Department of Homeland Security. You've already heard testimony today on the TTIC, which is now stood up, I believe, and also the Terrorist Screening Center, which is to actually develop one master terrorist watch list for our government and the like. So it's not that we're just getting it from one place. And I still, by the way, I do get a weekly briefing, typically, from the CIA, and I also get another briefing once or twice a week from our own Office of Intelligence myself, just to make sure that we understand as best we can everything that's relevant, and that we are then tasking operationally intelligence-driven special operations to all the ports of entry in the United States. All the customs and immigration, legacy customs and immigration inspectors are now CBP officers, and to the Border Patrol.
What we just continue to be very worried about is that we have these great experienced people out at CIA and new people, new hires, less experienced people coming into new slots and new requirements at TTIC and Department of Homeland Security, and that will be a task-up problem and a training problem, and is something that I'm sure, Commissioner Bonner, you're experiencing. The day has been very long. We've had a great a series of panels, and you've been very helpful. Let me conclude with just one last question to Mr. Ziglar. According to our staff, let me just read you a couple sentences. Here's what might happen at our port of entry today. Today at ports of entry, inspectors swipe machine-readable passports when they are presented. The computer then prompts the inspector to enter the visa type. The computer tells the inspector to give the B1, B2 applicant 6 months. 6 months to stay. The hijacker, Walid al-Shari, for instance, only requested 20 days, but was given automatically by the computer 6 months. Do you think that there should be an automatic designated length of stay for people coming into this country when they're requesting significantly less than that? And why aren't we addressing this?
Congressman, I actually addressed that in my opening statement. In fact, I propose that we have a 30-day default period when there was ambiguity about how long somebody wanted to stay, and that we operate on the basis of you come in, you say, I'm going to be here for 2 weeks, and here's my itinerary, and we give you 2 weeks, or we give you 3 weeks, or we give you some reasonable period of time, as opposed to just by default giving you 6 months. My view was that 6 months, number one, encourages overstays. They get here, they like it, they find a boyfriend or girlfriend, all these things happen. Secondly, it certainly gives a lot of time for evil folks to come in here and do their thing really undetected. And so I thought, my view was that if we're going to have an entry-exit system that will record the comings and goings, and we have this 30-day default period, or we know why you're here and how long you're going to be here, that we can match those things up a whole lot better, and not just for terrorism, though, Congressman, for better control of our borders and better enforcement of our immigration laws. Because, not everybody who comes across the border is a terrorist, but there are people who come across the border with the intent of staying here because they like it. And one of the biggest problems we got are illegal aliens in the country. 40% of those are overstays. And it seems to me that we can deal with that problem by not having such a wide-open default period of 6 months. That was my view. We published a notice of proposed regulations, and boy, did the storm start.
Mr. Ziglar, it's been a long day, but not so long that I didn't listen to your very eloquent opening statement. I heard you say that you proposed it. Congress hasn't listened. We haven't done anything about that. How can we make your proposal effective?
Congressman, Congress doesn't have to do anything about that.
So how do we get it, by the executive branch or by a commissioner or somebody? How do we accomplish what you sought out to try to achieve?
Well, you've got to convince the executive branch to do it, and then you've got to convince the executive branch not to bend when Congress threatens them with the ability to cut off money or to do all the things that Congress can do to the executive branch. This does not require legislation. This is a regulation function.
Are you talking about Mr. Executive Branch Bonner?
I just made a note.
You've got the right people here today to do something about that if they'd listen to that kind of proposal. Thank you, Mr.